Hard to let it go.
Yeah, we one of these yesterday wasn't enough.
Without hesitation, we go because we know that there's something of benefit there. It's about 7:05 now, so I'm just going to check back in. Is there anybody who has been called?
I can do it. Oh, Dennis is actually saying he can do it. Dennis is waiting.
Annika and Dennis, my two favorite readers. Dennis, why don't you read the one, and if Annika is still interested, when she sees the other, she can read that one.
Sure, sounds good.
Morning, everyone. Enough. These few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here. This opening to life. We have refused again and again until now. Until now.
Yes, thank you. David White, thank you very much, Dennis. I'm going to move up then and see if Annika, you can see the little poem there by Sarah Teasdale.
I'm thinking if you make your your page smaller. You see you have 150% down on the right-hand side at the bottom of your Word document. You make that 100, we might be able to see the lower one. Yeah, perfect.
I have on it on 100 now, so.
Oh, okay, it says 150. You might have to unshare and share again in that case.
Okay, let's try that. And of course, what's so fun for me is the document disappears handily for me. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
it's just, yeah, it says 100 for me. That's what I've got.
Can you do a share of the document again?
Yes. Let's see. Where did it go? Maybe not. I don't think, I'm not sure. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Hang on, let's see if I can do it. This is Diana's Technology Practice Day.
Perfect.
That's what I've got.
Yeah. All right. So does it start with "It is enough for me" by day?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I will read, I'll read it quietly to myself and then I'll read it. Okay. It is enough for me by day to walk the same bright earth with him, enough that over us by night the same great roof of stars is dim. I have no care to bind the wind or set a fetter on the sea. It is enough to feel his love blow by like music over me.
And I made the choice for this one. I believe Sarah Teasdale may be speaking about source or divine or sacred God, possibly. And I chose it because when we practice mindfulness, we really don't often identify source in this way. In the Buddhist teachings, particularly, it is non-theistic, meaning no one source. And so I thought I would include this just really as another expression and experience of this enoughness, being filled not only by one's own awakened heart mind, but that which is source around us.
It was perfect for me but today, so I'm glad I got to read it.
Wonderful. I felt compelled to offer it, so there it was. Look at this one, anyone. See if this little paragraph has any meaning for you. This language is not included in that. Anybody feel drawn to this?
I'll read it.
All right. Thank you, Seth.
Love is enough, though the world be a waning, and the woods have no voice but the voice of complaining. Though the sky be too dark for dim eyes to discover, the gold cups and daisies fair blooming thereunder. Though the hills be held shadows, and the sea a dark wonder, and this day draw a veil over all deeds passed over, yet their hands shall not tremble, their feet shall not falter, the void shall not weary, the fear shall not alter these lips and these eyes of the loved and the lover.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. I'm not going to suggest we read the following. We'll go on later with this thought by the Buddha himself. If you knew as I know the benefit of generosity, you would not let an opportunity go by without sharing. If you know, I know the benefit of generosity, you would not let, and I actually believe in the sutta it says a meal, you would not let a meal go by as an opportunity to be sharing. So I think this has been adjusted a little, but I like it because it speaks in a more general way. You would not let any opportunity go by without sharing. We're going to stop the share for now and practice a little bit more once again with generosity. And what I'd like you to do first, I've got a thing happening in my head here. I can see it. This is not handy. What's happening? Okay, so I have a little feather in my head today. What I'd like you to do first is think of a word for you, and then I'd like you to chat it and then practice. Think of a word for you that would be a synonym for generosity. What would be a word? Generosity is not a very common word, is it? Think of a word for you or a set of words that you might use in your everyday language, your parlance, your lingo, that would be a word that you might use that would be representative for you of this generosity. Of course, we're using the Sanskrit word, DANA PARAMITA, the practice, the perfection, generosity beyond our mere concepts or ideas. Openness, loving care, kindness, selfless love, connection, inclusive heart. What else? Words for generosity that you might use. These are beautiful words. They're very felt words with feeling tone in them. Lovely. What are some others? Does anybody think of words like, I think I saw selfless already. Abundant. Sufficient. Generosity would be more, wouldn't it? Joyful giving. Yes, if we could let the heart speak and not the head, that's exactly right. Isn't it true? Right? Sweet surrender, giving, purpose. Lovely. These are relevant. I'm going to check our participants' open-hearted sharing. Lovely. I think I'm going to check just to make sure we're on mute. There we go. Now we won't get the vibration quite as much. All right, so let's prepare to practice. Dana Paramita. Giving, sharing, openness. Here are some synonyms from the teachings. Non-clinging, non-attachment, just as some other ideas. So establishing yourself, preparing for the sitting practice. If you can be sitting today because your body will allow, I would try for that. Establishing the anchor, the base of the body, the feet, the legs, and the hips. Feeling down and into that part of the body. Making sure you're supported. And then breathing from the base of the hip and spine all the way up the back, establishing this beautiful inner dignity, this enoughness, this generosity, this abundance. How would the body hold itself if it knew cell by cell you had everything you needed right now? And in fact, more. How would this body be if it knew the truth? And so as we're establishing the body and then rising up from the top of the head and coming down into the front of the body, what I'd like you to breathe in as you're entering the body is this reality that you have been gifted this precious human life, the capacity for love, for kindness, for care and compassion. You have been gifted everything throughout all time so that you could be here to manifest this first and most essential practice. Non-clinging, non-reactive, non-attachment, the offering of oneself completely to this life, this one moment. Dana Paramita. Breathing down and into the front of the body. Relaxing, softening, opening, selfless, complete, abundant, enough. May this practice be a benefit to all beings, everywhere without exception. As if there were no lack, no deficiency. Because in this moment, there isn't. So for a moment, let's incline the mind towards the gifts being offered us just this very moment. Filling the mind with the reality of the generosity being gifted to us. We began with the truth of this precious human life and the breath that is being gifted this next in-breath. Breathe it in and see if you can sense the sweetness of the gift of this in-breath. Maybe you can feel its ease, its effortlessness. Maybe you're noticing a certain heart vibration at the reality of the gift. A sense of gratitude, appreciation, joy. Being enlivened with each in-breath. This is the knowing faculty. Maybe you're breathing in, remembering the fact that we don't get to keep the breath. We are offered it in one moment and must surrender it the next. True Dana Paramita. gifted and given. See if you can sense its completeness, its enoughness, that there is nothing lacking. And then breathe the breath into the whole body sitting here. We have been gifted this body. Now, whether you like it or you don't, those are simply opinions, preferences, and prejudice. Nothing to cling to. Can you just breathe in, enjoying the gift of this body? Exactly as it is right now. Maybe feeling its warmth, feeling its capacity for balance, for strength, for flexibility, for feeling. Maybe the sense doors, seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, knowing, recognizing the generosity of the body, completely offering itself. Gently scanning the body with the breath. Seeing if we can cultivate a certain heart-mind quality of friendliness. Of appreciation, of gratitude and joy for all the benefits you have received from this body. And in response to the bounty of the body, the benefits, the beauty of the body, see if you can enter the body a little more fully. Really reside in, dwell, move into, join, accompany this body. You may notice pleasant sensations, maybe some sensations that are unpleasant. And this is the body offering itself continuously to you, informing, communicating, connecting. Complete. And then drawing down the body, if you would, down beyond the torso, the hips, the legs, into the feet, and feeling the sense of the solidness of the earth beneath you. Making contact and feeling into the generosity of the earth and the earth element. This earth with which provides a home to you. The earth which is available to you from birth to death and beyond. DANA PARAMITA, the earth gifting itself, not only the ground, but all of its elements. The plants, the animals, the minerals of which you are made, air, carbon. The open space, the warmth, the waters, the winds. And as we settle this body into stillness, remembering the gifts of the earth, and see if you can relax the body just a little bit more with this knowing, being held each moment. Being nourished breath by breath, all that is beautiful, all that is nourishing, all that is needed is made available. The most loving and generous mother. And to receive these gifts, it requires that we too be open. And so breathing up from the feet, coming up into the area of the heart space. With each in-breath, seeing if we can open, include, expand. And then the out-breath, see if you can let the heart take the shape of the space in which you sit. This vast, open, boundless space being offered to you. And let the body begin to dissolve and open into that space. We cannot hold ourselves against it. This is that self-making, self-clinging, self-craving, the opposite of DANA PARAMITA. We dissolve ourselves into that open space. Boundless, vast, loving and generous. And this boundless heart, this heart of DANA PARAMITA, moves beyond the body. It considers it, it includes it, but it is not limited by. The heart expands beyond the body to include whatever is needed. Receptive, engaging, abundant, just like the earth from which we all come. This is the feeling of DANA PARAMITA. It has no limit. It has no grasping. Completely receptive, open, and responsive. But it is not only the boundless heart that is included as a faculty in DANA PARAMITA. It is also this compelling wisdom factor, prajna, mindfulness, clear seeing. DANA PARAMITA is completely responsive, not only from this source of loving presence, but wisdom. And it is not a measuring tool. It is not cognizing. It sees what needs to be done, knows its rightness, its appropriateness, its skillfulness. and offers exactly what is needed, what is of benefit. It nourishes the wholesome. This prajna, wisdom factor, mindfulness factor, assists you in joining with the heart completely. They're not separate entities. And knowing what is right, so that two things don't happen. We don't become stingy, we don't perceive lack, we don't get self-clinging, and we don't get taken advantage of. Giving what is needed does not mean giving what is wanted. Because we know something about the wanting self, don't we? Always clinging, always grasping, always hungry, never satisfied. This is the opposite. Dana paramita, by its very nature, is complete. And so I'd like you to recollect a moment while you're resting in this complete exchange of Dana paramita, just as we breathe and are wakeful here. I'd like you to think of a moment where maybe you gave more than was needed. Was it out of a sense of duty, maybe guilt? Was it done impulsively or too quickly so that you didn't have time to assess? The prajna was not able to become a skillful faculty. See if you can make contact, because this is likely slightly a habit for you. Are you giving to secure something? Are you giving as a bargain? I'll give you this if you give me something. Is the giving offered with hope for something? These can tend to be factors, mental factors that actually will block or distort the prajna. And then dropping into the body and seeing how that feels. You will likely notice a tightness, a grip, a contraction, somewhere there. See if you can make contact with that. And let's use that deep listening. Were we needing attention, looking for love, feeling obligated? Fearful? It has a different quality of mind and heart, and I want you to know it. See if you notice where you experience this. And then we can use it as a valuable signal. Is there a contraction around the heart? I'm noticing, just interestingly, an old back pain kind of back, which is probably a signal for me of burden. The belief thought that I needed to take it on. And given that all contractions come out of fear, we might ask ourselves, what was the fear? I couldn't secure love, the relationship. I would be judged or rejected, maybe even abandoned. It's the fear. And then letting this go for a moment, coming back into the open space. Remembering the sufficiency, the enoughness, the abundance being offered to you right now. The sitting and breathing here, says David White, enough. Create space and room, letting the contractedness fall away, dissolve, remembering all that has been gifted to you. And then I'd like you to recollect for a moment the perfect giving, a giving that you offered that you knew was completely right, It didn't matter the amount. It wasn't even a factor. There was no measuring. It was just, you knew it by heart. Now you offered it completely without hesitation, with no clinging, no attachment, no fear. This Dana Paramita is fearless. It wasn't because anybody saw it. It wasn't because anybody would hold a different opinion of you. It was simply the giving, because the giving itself was complete. And there was no question. You never looked back. You never went, did I do the right thing? And it didn't even matter what other people thought about it. Other people saying, oh, I don't know, it's maybe too much. You didn't need to do that. Maybe even the gifted said so. And it's not relevant, right? There's no noise for this heart. And feel into the body of this as you recollect it, doing the same. Feeling the effects of this. Resting in the knowing and the giving. Feeling that sense of abundance. Already enough. Already more than enough. And breathe that. Dana Paramita. Without question, without confusion, completely heartful. May I offer all that I give with this wisdom and heartfulness, and rest in ease and joy in the giving. And may this practice contribute. So I'm going to go back to the notes because I wrote a few about, I think, a couple points that I wanted to highlight. And then we'll go to the chapter, which is chapter 27. Let's see if I can find this. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, let's start here. So, if you knew, as I know, the benefit of generosity, you would not let an opportunity go by without sharing. And again, it's a little bit of a paraphrasing of the Buddha. One of the things I wanted people to know is that DANA PARAMITA both is a path and a practice. It is understood to be both a path and a practice. It offers, as a practice, the antidote, it is understood, to greed, to self-clinging, to self-preoccupation, to self-referencing, and attachment. It offers the antidote by the very process of DANA PARAMITA in the practice. And so you see some of that there. Clinging reduces clinging and self-centeredness. And for me, most importantly, which I have not understood, I have to say much of my practice life, it actually is a path to fearlessness. And I didn't get that for a long time. It actually cultivates courage and bravery in a way that I had not understood until recently. But that comes out of that non-self-centered orientation, that the view is so much larger, the one we were resting in the practice today, that there really is no fear factor at all. Not fear for oneself and not fear for the other. I have given, in a way, probably in my younger years, that I thought was wholehearted. And I realized later that I was fearful. And it wasn't actually, interestingly, for myself, but I was fearful for the other, in a way that the giving came out of that fear, rather than the clarity that this will be of benefit, this will serve, this will grow, and even propagate greater skills and capacities in another. So I've shifted that some now. And then we don't have to be so fearful about knowing when the right giving is. We get to consider those factors. And what Chogyam is saying, and we'll read him a little bit, is that it becomes so natural that they are so bound together, this prajna, this wisdom and this giving, that there is no question any longer. And I have to say, mostly, I feel like I'm there. It's not too much that I hesitate. And I have that experience with the gentleman at the juice stop, probably as one of my greatest last teachings, where I gave almost throwing money at someone out of fear, out of real fear, and really saw it so completely. It was a beautiful teaching opportunity and learning for me. Generosity comes out of the ground of compassion. It is only from knowing the truth of suffering, the truth of distress, that we can then cultivate also prajna and compassion, so that we are offering, again, as my teacher said repeatedly, that which is needed. Not based on preference, not based on I like blue better than orange, not based on, well, there's only this amount, that what needs to be reckoned is reckoned, and we offer what is needed. The Tibetan practice, I love this practice. I wanted to talk about it today. There is a practice in the Tibetan tradition, which is the Mahayana as well. And I didn't see that Chogyam talked about it, but it's exchanging one hand for another an item. And so I brought just this heart today as a thing you can see. And so the practice is to hold it in one's hand, make contact with it, and then give it to the other. And practice actually giving in this way and really letting it go without, I want to go get it, and I still have it. And then we also exchange again. And they say to start with a fairly neutral object like a stone. This is just a little heart stone, which was a lovely gift to me. And so this is the beginning that we offer open-handed release, feel into the physical felt sense of that, enjoy the experience of that, and that we then do it again, resting and releasing. And that we then take that very same object, this will be our practice this week, and offer it to another. And it says to start with ordinary everyday objects and then keep moving up to things that then you have greater attachment to, greater meaning. And this is understood to be a practice. This is not so much the prajna, right action factor. This is simply practicing letting go, releasing, offering, and not keeping the mind attached and the self attached in the giving. And so practice with something. I'm going to be offering this little heart, and I'm going to be practicing with it for a day or two, holding it, letting it go, holding it and letting it go, and then eventually offering it to another. I'm going to turn this down a little so I can see the notes here. Relinquishment can be a difficult word for us. I have to say what relinquishment is actually is not of the item. It isn't actually of the thing, it's of the self-clinging to the thing. That's what we're actually relinquishing. So be watchful. We can mistake it to mean I've got to give away everything. And in fact, that's not the practice at all. What we're relinquishing is self-clinging, self-attachments, and the habits of heart-mind that come with that. And I wrote here, letting go of all the ways that we create a self over and over again. In Vipassana practice, just the one we did here, that would be considered Vipassana practice. We try to make offers of ourself without things. This says props. Without things. Can we offer our whole heart? Can we offer our complete attention? Can we offer last Tuesday, that there are levels of giving, and the greatest level is offering one's whole self and presence. And we were going to practice with that this week, saying, I am here, what is needed, and then stepping in naturally, and doing that at least 10 times throughout the week. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. I'd like to hear how that went for you. There's actually nothing that can be held onto. And as we remember the truth of impermanence, sometimes it can ultimately cultivate that inner sense of richness, abundance, recognizing that there is no thing that offers that to us. Kingly or queenly giving, giving the best we have. Again, I want us to be careful. We're not measuring the item. We're measuring the heart. Well, I don't even want to use the word measuring. Feeling into the open, spacious, loving heart that is making the offer. This is kingly or queenly giving. Be watchful, again, of the measuring stick, of the item itself. This is not the way. Why do you give? Someone asked Gandhi. I don't give to anyone. I do it all for myself. I thought that was a beautiful quote and regard for this idea of that which we give, in fact, comes back 10,000 fold. As we give to help and free others, we are also actually giving and helping free ourselves. And these were just some of the questions we invited during the practice. I will send this to all of you. So I'm going to switch back now. So I'd like to hear from a few of you while I move this for myself. I'd like to hear from you. How was this giving for you this week? This trying to offer oneself. I am here, and remember, we call that the truest kingly, queenly giving, offering oneself, not in a material form necessarily, but it could include that, but actually offering one's presence, one's protection, you might even say, and whole heart mind, meaning completely present, listening and available. Talk to me and each other. How was that this week? Yes, I heard all of you say, bring my thing up. I actually put it down on purpose because I couldn't read, but thank you. We were just staring at my new shirt. I'm trying to read this. Yes, everyone, thank you. Thank you. That was my freest giving there. I just thought I'd share my chest with you all. I just wanted to see something. Let's see. Notice people do not need that much. Okay, yes, thank you. Someone, Courtney, who was saying, as she was staying present, as she was being available, one of the things I was sort of letting you all know is that often more is not required. And I was hoping that you would discover this. When we offer ourselves completely present, I am here and available, what is needed, that actually you're already more than satisfying what was actually needed. And in fact, sometimes for not very long. So Courtney, I'm glad that you actually saw that. Yes, by giving, we always end up with more. There's no doubt about it. What else? Anybody want to come online and talk about an experience with this being present and seeing what else was needed? I'm curious how this has been.
Diana, I would like to.
Thank you.
I was doing our practice all week and happened to have some friends over and was being my normal self, not going out of my way to give, and did something, and it kind of stepped back because my girlfriend goes, you know, it'd be nice if I had to ask you and you just didn't do it. And I thought, oh, that was an interesting comment. And it was something I was just normally did. And I thought, I'm obviously giving too much to this one person. And I didn't quite know how to take that. It's kind of sat with me for the week.
Yeah, what was your sense, Caroline, when you heard her say that? It would be nice if I could ask you.
Yeah, if you just didn't give it to me, if I could ask for it.
If I could actually.
And
just right now, what's your sense?
My sense of it was, I stepped back and maybe a little bit of like, you know, I wouldn't say hurt. I would say just a little stunned.
Yes.
And thought, wow, okay, obviously I'm giving too much and now I need to back off. But that wasn't our practice.
That's right. It was to really give as freely as it was available. And really,
right.
in your presence. Did you get any sense, maybe, I'm curious about what other people think about this. Did you get the sense that maybe she was saying, I end up feeling bad about myself when I see you giving so much, or I feel deficient in some way when I see you being so generous or giving so much.
And it might have been because it wasn't a negative.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't negative. It was very soft and very, I didn't know what, I think I was so stepped back by it that I didn't quite know how to take it. And I kind of put my radar up and went,
Yeah.
okay,
Yes.
you
Didn't
go
know.
ahead and ask for here.
Yeah, that's an interesting
So,
statement. I'd like to be
anyway.
able to ask you. I'm going to see if other people have a thought about this, because it's a curious statement. Yeah, to give what is needed, not what you perceive is wanted. And that was another thought I had, Caroline. It's like you're so quick, you're so giving that people don't even recognize or know what they need because there it is. And it's maybe more than is actually needed in a way that may make people feel uncomfortable. Because it's not necessary. And it may be in some way costly to you. And I don't mean financially, just in your energy, in your gifting to others. They may be trying to be kind to you, saying, you're already so much, you don't need to do more, or because it sounds like it wasn't done with any fear or aggression in it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which is a little
It's
bit,
interesting.
yeah, very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Diana.
Yes, Seth.
So one thing, I'll just speak for myself, because I've had that feeling. And the thing for me that happens is what's missing is my being able to make a request and then having someone give to me. Like the experience of being given to is kind of missing when someone is just doing something like automatically, or so there's some like, I don't know, it's like there's some richness of the experience that I feel is missing.
Yeah, I think you had the magic word there, Seth, when you said doing. It might feel like a lot of doing, but not necessarily responding and really being with you and really being present to you. Is that what you're saying? Because I know what you mean by that. Caroline,
Yeah.
does it ring any bells for you?
No, because I was doing what I would normally do
Okay.
in my heart.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the normal might be a question mark. Normal
Right.
might be that you frequently are a doer and do a lot of doing. And then from your heart would be the right number, right? I mean, that's the right amount. But if it's just normal, it might be habitual. And so the checking in on that could be useful. Like am I a person who just does that in a way that others then don't feel like, as Seth was saying, it's an exchange.
Right. Well, and it's definitely made an impact where I have stepped back from doing certain things and kind of reevaluated.
Yes.
It's not as much fun.
Yes. I think it's okay to be a little bit in the, let me look at this for a minute, which I have to say I don't think as natural, we'll say, might not be as natural. But I think this is one of the prajna factors. There is a little, I don't want to call it off-centeredness because I think it's ultimately wholehearted, but I think we hesitate to see, like, where is it coming from? Is it coming from just this natural habit, which is different than a natural heartfulness? And how can we create a pause or a space to feel that heart full in us and know that the giving is from that? And sometimes it's so right. I was asking us to lean in on that a little bit. That was just like so there. And there was just and it wouldn't matter what anybody said. It wouldn't have mattered. It was just exactly what was completely available. And then people wanted it or they didn't want it. It doesn't even matter, right? It's just that that's what was really genuinely there. and that we can feel into those differences, that there's really a direct somatic body-centered experience in it. And if you're doing it by autopilot, the hesitation is good, especially if it's something you do regularly. To go, okay, so maybe not just like that. Maybe I don't have to pick up every restaurant bill. Maybe, and I've worked with one of our family members on this, who, always just grabs the bill and pays the bill. And I'm like, I don't know if that's always the right thing. I think other people want to feel like they can participate and that they're in an exchange, as Seth was saying, where there's we're doing it mutually. It's not me, the one who has, giving to you now in some interesting way, the one who doesn't. And those are just questions, right? We're not trying to answer Caroline or anyone else's inquiry, just to say that these are the kinds of questions I think that are useful to ask. Let's see what else people.
Diana?
Yes, Leslie.
Hi.
Hi.
What I flashed on when Caroline spoke is when I had my school and Kate, little Kate was 3 years old, and another little girl, Devon Ray, was crying, and we were all practicing being care kids. That was the thing that we had the caring advantage, and everyone's a care kid. And so
Yes,
she
I remember.
wanted to be, and gave her a hug, and Devon Ray like pushed her away, like, leave me alone. And poor Katie, she was like, she started crying. She just said, no, I'm just trying to help you. And she didn't want that kind of help. And then we had to work out that in some way you have to observe and then ask. If
Yes,
someone
that's the
wants
prajna.
that.
This is the prajna factor. It is not only about oneself. It is
Right.
about oneself, the situation you're in, and the other. And really giving in a way that everyone recognize, is enabled to be in contact. It doesn't mean that the other gets to decide for you. Remember, sometimes I have given something. I want to use this example, and the person has said, no, this is too much. Right? That was their experience. And I said, well, I want you to decide what's right for you. I just want you to know I gave exactly what I wanted you to have. And also, if that's not right for you, I want to be respectful of that too. And it's a difficult conversation because sometimes I think people say that out of a social, like they're supposed to say, oh, no, you shouldn't have. Right? That also happens as a habit. But no, I want you to know I really want you to have this. So I'd like you to just sit with this, right? Let it be. See if it's can be right for you. The answer is sometimes the person has said yes, it's wonderful and loving and right away. Sometimes that happens. And a few times the person has said, as I've thought about this, I'm not going to utilize this gift. This is not going to be used. It's just going to sit somewhere. It's not going to, right? And so I would rather you give it to someone who will really benefit or someone who, and I've just been grateful for that. I just thought that was stunning, which is thank you so much for letting me know that. Because that's the honest presence. That's the real exchange. We can be together in and with this. So these are all, again, these are just deep considerations with no one right answer. Anything else about the practice? Yes. I heard something.
Yeah, it's me, Annika.
Yes.
It was very surprising. So when you think about the giving, like you would think about, oh, I'll give a hug, or I'll give food, or I'll give, some sort of thing. But what I was asked to give, what's hard for me to give actually, was to watch 1.5 hours of a fairly violent documentary because I was asked to share a trauma, a pain. So Ken Burns, the Vietnam War, it's a lot of raw stories that are really hard to listen to. And I think that sometimes you expect the giving to be sort of all rainbows and butterflies, if you know what I mean. It doesn't, you don't think it means being uncomfortable for 1.5 hours. But that's why I wrote the second part of the comment I put in the comment field is I have to then really check in with myself. I will give that. But when I start contracting, when I start feeling like I'm doing it just to, you know, be nice or be helpful, but from an intellectual place, not from a heartfelt, flowy place, then I have to sort of check in and say, okay, this is enough now.
That's right.
But I find giving with skill is a great challenge, I think.
I agree with you. I think it's very challenging. I think we're, as Caroline was saying, she just does this easily. And also, I think when we know that we have, maybe I have something I see that another doesn't have, sometimes I think we give as a way of trying to balance that, or out of a certain guilt at having sometimes certain things. It could come out of that. It could come out of a sense of responsibility, duty. These are just deep habits that it is, and the doing that I think we're also alluding to, that the giving is some kind of a doing rather than the shift I'm wanting us to make, and that I know that Chogyam is wanting us to make, is this shift from the idea of Dana Paramita being a doing to being a being. That it really begins with one's whole awakened heart mind. That's the bodhisattva path. And that whatever comes from that, we begin to trust and we rest in and we see as complete and we see as enough and more than enough. And that's the invitation, is that we don't simply see it as a doing or a giving, but as a way of being. And it's one of the reasons that the Tibetans practice with the exchange. It's really then a way of being open, open-handed, open-hearted. It's using an object, but really it's to rest in the release from all of that. And all the concepts that we bring to this idea that givers are good, giving up everything is better. We have to be watchful because we have a collective consciousness and a reality. The giving tree, I don't know if anyone for sure, Leslie remembers the giving tree, right? Yeah. Where, you know, to death, you're just a dead old stump. And right, the little boy goes off to do whatever he's doing. And I'm exaggerating this, of course, hyperbole for the point, but you know, there was a mindset that I want us to be watchful of, because in these teachings, it also says you can give too much so that the other does not pursue their happiness. If you know what I mean. You can give too much so that the other becomes sated or over, there's a word for this.
Diana.
Yes.
Spoiling your child.
Yes, right, where there is no self-reach, there is no propagation of one's own good towards one's own benefit. The spoiled child, indulging, there's the word, Leslie. Right. That it can be indulging in a way that actually invites harm, as we know.
Or
right?
Giving something you would want, but the child doesn't need. So the child might need you to hear for 45 minutes something complicated and painful, and you're trying to give them a hug because you think that they should have a hug and so settle down.
Yes. Isn't it? Aren't all these realities? So these are all the complexities in Dana Paramita. Thank you for this conversation, because I think it's a really important one that we understand. I want to go to the chapter for a minute because I only want to pick out for another few moments some of Chogyam's words. I don't know if you guys can see this. I'm not confident.
No.
Okay, thank you. Let me get that up for you. Hopefully now you can see
Yes.
Yes.
Get rid of the. So here's a couple of Chogyam's, a little bit of his language. You can afford to open yourself and join the rest of the world with a sense of tremendous generosity, goodness, and richness. The more you give, the more you gain. But that should not be your reason for giving. Rather, the more you give, the more you are constantly inspired to give. And I'm going to add there, or not give. The more you give, the more you are constantly inspired to give or not. And that's actually the prajna factor that I believe is so critical in what we might call right giving. And the gaining process happens naturally and automatically. And that's what he means by the way, the path of the Bodhisattva, is we get so good at it because we've done these deep inquiries that in fact, we do not need then to question everything. We're going to do it for now, though. We are going to stop, hesitate, check in on our giving, which we're going to continue to do this week, starting with a very ordinary object. And then I'd like you to bump it up throughout the week. I'd like you to start with a simple object. This is going to be my white heart. I'm going to carry it for a day, and then I'm going to gift it each day. And each day I'm going to pick something that I'd like you to pick that is of greater value to me. Greater value to me. I don't know about money value. That's not particularly very relevant for me as a person, but it might be for you. And so if that's the case, then pick something that's more expensive, if you know that that's a real factor for you. And that's going to be the practice of Dana Paramita, because I want you to get the sense of where the grip is, where the hesitation is, where the ease is, so that we can talk about it next week.
Could you clarify that? Are we giving it away to other people?
Yeah, we're going to carry it for a day. You're going to be exchanging it in your hands for the day. And at the end of the day or the next day, you're going to give it away. Is that clear?
Yes, but what happens if you only meet your husband? Because I'm sort of not meeting anybody right now.
You can send it. You can gift it and not yet exchange it. You can say to the person, this is yours. I want you to have this on Zoom.
Okay.
And when I see you next, I will give it to you. You get that? Yeah. I want you to relinquish it. You're going to gift it, give it, and let them know however you do that.
Does it have to be directed giving? Can you kind of place it in a common place?
No, it needs to be given.
Because, yeah, okay.
Yes, not just left.
I honestly am not in contact with anybody else than this group. Now you guys might be getting a lot of things.
Yay, I'm smiling already. That's very lovely. It doesn't matter. So what matters is I have a sense of this. I'm holding it. I'm feeling into my own attachment or value or not value. I'm just exchanging with myself in the practice, how easy or difficult, and then either at the end of the day or the next day. You're going to be making a formal, however you do that, by Zoom, by letter, by connection, you're going to be gifting the item. And I want you to stay present for that, see what that feels like. I'm going to pull this down a little bit so that I can see. Paramita practice begins with generosity. The paramita of generosity, I have to move this, or Dana Paramita, is described as the treasury of wealth. And And the wealth is, of course, once again, Chogyam is saying, not material goods. Not material goods. Chogyam also says here, by the way, that until we can operate in this exchange completely, we cannot move on to the other paramitas. That while we're in self and othering, me giving to you, giving, that the other paramitas on the path of the bodhisattva will become very difficult. And that's why Dana Paramita is understood to be the first practice and also available then in every other practice. You take this with you, the heartfulness, into every other practice. And so that's what he's saying here. The idea of Dana is one of giving, donating, opening yourself up. I loved that line. Opening yourself. I really want us to begin there with this idea of opening ourselves. That's the idea of the kingly or queenly giving. It is in fact not about the object at all, though we're going to be practicing, understanding where our limitations and our grasping might be, but opening ourselves up completely. It also says here, relating to the other is just as important as knowing one's own heart. This is the definition of prajna, that we know something about the other. This isn't random. It's not habitual giving. It's not just giving because we have. It's actually because we can lead to indulgence, or as Leslie was saying, a spoiled child. This is giving because it is useful, best, and of benefit. Jinpa just means letting go or giving away. To open one's hand, and I would add heart, to give and to let go. What we're letting go there is not the object, it is one's attachment to the object. That's what we're practicing: non-attachment, non-clinging, non-self grasping. Generosity, of course, we know this, but don't always practice it, is given without expectation, demand, or even hope. We even bring hope into our giving at times. That sets us up because we may not get the thank you. The thing may not result in the way we had hoped. And then we can misunderstand our generosity as of not being of benefit because it didn't go in the ways we had hoped. And we have to be very watchful of that form of giving. And in fact, we don't consider that giving when we've got an outcome, an expectation, or commitment. You're giving away your wealth. He means of self, one's selfhood. Giving away wisdom and understanding, giving away the Dharma, by the way, that means being the Dharma. Being is actually understood to be the greatest giving possible. There's the non-attachment word. I just wanted to make sure we spoke to that. The first message should never be, I want. Therefore, we should try to work things around me. That's all it's saying is we don't respond simply to the wanting nature, the craving of another. We actually know that that will not be skillful and of benefit. I'll tell you a story next week about giving my stepfather a bottle of scotch for 20 years until I recognized that he was an alcoholic. And I was giving him what he wanted. But not very skillfully, and of course then with certain consequence that I somewhat inadvertently, based on youth and some other things, didn't recognize. The Buddhist approach is completely the opposite of the typical way of giving. And what Chogyam means there is it doesn't necessarily lead to a good feeling. I'm going to be careful how I say this. it's not done for a good feeling. Let me go there. It is not done to get the good feeling for oneself. That's what I mean. It's done really with a much larger, much greater aspiration. And often in our giving, it feels good. And so we can get into the habit of giving out of getting that good feeling in a way that actually is not understood to be of greatest benefit or skillful. So we're watching for that, and it feels so good to give. We already have defined egolessness as not just for oneself, and no separation between oneself and the other. Not me the helper, me the giver, you the one who benefits. That those boundaries and lines and roles are completely dissolved in this giving. There is no consideration, me giving to you, because the pronouns are now all wrong and not skillful. It is being willing to part with anything precious, anything that you want to hold on to. The reason I underlined that is this is the practice this week. We're going to take something we like, enjoy, and practice. It says you don't have to give so much that you don't have anything, that's also not skillful. And of course, we all know that. The thing should be precious to you in some way. Often we give, I notice I do this to CRC and to Rancho Coastal Humane Society. I put things in boxes and then give them away every week or every month. And the truth is that's not DANA PARAMITA. I'm mostly giving away things I don't want. Things I have too many of, things that I no longer need, value, or benefit from. This is not understood to be DANA PARAMITA. In fact, it's just Marie Kondo's process of letting go, tidying up, we might call it. But that's not this practice. Generosity is conceived out of our compassion, tenderness, and benevolence. So respecting others is a very important point. We could not use the word benevolence today, though Chogyam could, because benevolence has a self-labeling ascription. I am benevolent, meaning I am good, I am giving. I would not use the word benevolence today. I think in his time, I don't think it had that same connotation, but we would not be giving to be benevolent. That is a self-framing, labeling, self-making, egoic, a little bit egoic term. People should not be left under the influence of the Maras or the evil ones. We talked about that other kind of giving. Giving out of duty, giving out of obligation, giving out of even aggression, like take this and shut up. We actually are capable in the Mara states of all of that. I think we talked about this. I'm not going to talk about the 3 levels. We've done it really, which is material giving, giving protection, or stopping exploitation, and then giving oneself. And that's the giving we're going to be practicing. All giving from that level is understood to be an act of fearlessness. And I talked about that briefly. There's courage and bravery built into that in a way that I actually am noticing myself. I don't want to talk about the gift of the Dharma. It's being it that actually matters, not teaching it. And the other place to practice, this is the practice that I knew of, which is giving a part of a meal away, that you take some, but you give some. And we're going to practice it in this way this week, but the practices in a monastic setting and in others was that whatever you take some of, you also give some of. And that's another version of the DANA Paramita practice. I think we're good. The more we give, the more we are inspired, I will just say. And out of that inspiration, I trust that the right thing will come. I think we're already well past our time. Thank you for being so patient with me. I know people have other places to go and things to do. I'm going to just gather ourselves for a moment here. Gathering in the heap in our greatest hearts, the wish that these practices be a benefit, and then the opening, the open-handedness, the free-handedness, the offering of all that is a benefit to those who need. May our practice today contribute. May we be happy. May we be free from harm and suffering. May we have ease and well-being. May we remember the non-distinction, the non-separation, the non-clinging, the non-grasping between self and other. This is the path and the practice. Thank you so much for your practice and your presence. And I say that each time, and it's because your presence really is the gift. The gift to me, the gift to the Sangha, to others, and all those others who you really bring your whole self to. We're going to practice that as well again this week, but we're also going to practice, just for a little experiment, this sense of giving an object, just for that physical felt sense of where the tug is, where the pull is, and what comes up for us. And again, I'm starting today by holding this, exchanging it in my hands throughout the day, and then gifting it. So thank you all so much. I'm going to stay on for a moment while you're all signing off, just so that I can answer any questions to make sure we get the practice for this week. I have a moment. So if there are questions, please hang out and come on and ask. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you next week. We have Greg teaching on Thursday morning. I'll be here on Saturday. And I'll look forward to talking with you about a generosity and the next chapter, chapter 28, which I'll be sending out today for discussion next week. Thank you all so much. Have a beautiful day. I'm going to just look at chat here and make sure that I don't have anything else I'm missing. What's mine is yours. Yes, that's lovely. Thank you all. You always are so gracious to offer thanks to me, and I'm offering it back to you. So thank you. I see something here I want to read. So, should we ask people if they are willing to receive our gifts before giving them? No, you are not. I want you to practice getting comfortable with your own prajna. You may or may not be right in it, and that's okay. But you're going to use your very best mindfulness, your very best prajna. You're going to have made the consideration slightly before you make the offer, and then give it freely. You don't know how it's going to go, because actually we never do. And then hear what the other has to say. I think it could be instructive, just like it was for Carolyn. Yes, in Reiki, you always ask before giving. That's a very, very intimate offering. which includes some other factors, including potentially hands. And just like in yoga, before we make that kind of intimate offer, we would always ask. That's absolutely correct. This one is with a less of a distinction between self and other than in Reiki. Anybody else? Looks like everyone is good. Questions or thoughts about this? Beautiful practice. I'm looking forward to investigating it with you. All right, everyone, I think we're well. So I'll look forward to hearing from you, seeing you, and talking more about this next week. I'll look forward to that. All right, everyone, be well.